My fiancée told me to man up after her affair, so I secretly moved out, canceled the wedding, and let her face everyone alone. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I truly believed I had found my forever person. Her name was Allie. We met in the most ordinary way, at a mutual friend's barbecue, but nothing about the way I felt around her was ordinary. She was all sun and spark, the kind of woman who made even dull days feel cinematic. She laughed loud, loved hard, and had this unshakable confidence that I found magnetic. And when she looked at me like I was the only person in the room, I honestly felt like I'd won the lottery in life. 5 years. That's how long we were together. We survived long-distance job layoffs, my dad's cancer scare, her grad school stress, real-life stuff. Through it all, she told me I was her anchor, her constant, her safe place. I held on to those words like gospel. I thought we had something rare, something sacred, so when I proposed, I didn't do anything flashy. I took her to the same beach where we had our first weekend trip and asked her to marry me under the same stars we once made dumb wishes on. She cried, said yes, kissed me like I was her whole world. We set the date, sent the invites, booked the venue. I even wore a stupid flower crown at the engagement shoot because she said it looked whimsical. My parents were thrilled. Hers already called me son. Everyone said we were that couple, solid, sweet, made to last. That's what makes all this so much harder to write. Because as I sit here now, there's no wedding, no shared home, no forever. Just a ring sitting in a drawer and a hole in my chest where my future used to be, and the worst part? I didn't even see it coming. Looking back, I wish I could say there was some huge betrayal that came out of nowhere, some dramatic shift I couldn't have predicted. But the truth is, the signs were there, subtle, easy to dismiss. And I did, over and over again. It started with her new job about 1.5 years before the wedding. She was thrilled, better salary, more creative freedom, and a lively office culture. I was genuinely happy for her. She deserved that win. But that's also when she started talking about her coworker, Drew. At first, it was small stuff. Funny things he said in meetings. How he brought donuts every Friday. How they both loved the same obscure indie band. I smiled, nodded along, never thought twice. Then it became more frequent. Drew said this. Drew thinks that. He was suddenly threaded through every story she told. One night, I half joked, "You talk about him more than you talk about me." She laughed and kissed my cheek, brushing it off. "You're not jealous, are you?" And honestly, I wasn't, not then. I trusted her. We had 5 solid years together. Why would I doubt her? But then she started hiding her phone, turning it face down during dinner. Walking into the other room to take calls, she said were work stuff. Once I picked up her phone to check the time and noticed the messages from Drew were archived. Like manually hidden. I brought it up gently, asked why. She got defensive fast, said I was being controlling, that she hated men who didn't respect boundaries, so I dropped it. I convinced myself I was being paranoid, that I should just be supportive, trust her, be secure. I gaslighted myself into silence, and that silence would cost me more than I could imagine. It was a Saturday afternoon when the lie unraveled, casual, almost forgettable. Allie told me she was headed to a weekend bridal spa retreat with her cousin Danielle and a few friends from college. I didn't think twice. She packed her overnight bag, gave me a kiss, and left with that same smile that used to make my whole day. I told her to have fun. She promised to bring me back one of those fancy bath bombs. The next morning, I ran into Danielle at the grocery store. I froze. She was in leggings, messy bun, holding a carton of oat milk, and clearly not at a spa. My brain struggled to catch up. Maybe she backed out last minute? Maybe Allie went without her? Danielle looked surprised to see me too. "Oh, hey! Thought you guys were at some wedding tasting thing today," she said casually. I played it off, smiled, lied back. "Yeah, just grabbing snacks before we go." My heart was pounding. My throat felt tight. I walked out of that store with a frozen pizza and a gut full of fire. When Allie came home Sunday night, she smelled like hotel soap and someone else's cologne. She acted normal. Showed me blurry selfies of her and the girls, conveniently without Danielle in any of them. I asked casually, "How was Danielle's massage?" Her eyes flicked, just for a second. "She had to cancel last minute," she said, too quickly. I stared at her. She stared back, unblinking, smiling. I nodded. Said nothing. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was the beginning of certainty, and certainty has a cruel way of refusing to stay buried. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. After all the gaslighting, the gut feelings, the second-guessing, I didn't catch her in some elaborate sting. It was one stupid notification. One careless moment. That's all it took. We were sitting on the couch on a rainy Wednesday night, eating takeout and half-watching a Netflix documentary. She had left her iPad charging in the kitchen. I only noticed it because it chimed twice. I got up instinctively to check. The screen lit up as I walked by, and there it was. A preview of a message from a contact saved as Drew. Last night was insane. Still taste you, I stopped breathing. For a few seconds, I just stood there, frozen. I read it 3 times, hoping my brain had scrambled the words, that I was misinterpreting something, anything. But there was no mistaking it. No clever excuse to be made from that. My stomach churned. The air in the room suddenly felt too thick to breathe. I turned to look at her on the couch. She was sipping her drink, completely unaware, laughing at something on the screen. My fiancée. My ride or die. The woman I was planning to build a life with. I didn't confront her right then. I couldn't. My body was there, but my mind had gone completely still. It was like watching a glass fall in slow motion, knowing it was going to shatter, but being too paralyzed to stop it. I walked back, sat beside her, and pretended nothing had happened. My hands shook as I held the chopsticks. She leaned her head on my shoulder. All I could think about was Drew and her, and how much of our life had already been a lie. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, waiting for morning, and a plan. I confronted her the next evening. I waited a full 24 hours, partly because I needed time to think, but mostly because I needed to see if she'd come clean on her own. Maybe she'd feel guilty. Maybe she'd confess. Maybe there was still a version of her that respected me enough to tell the truth. She didn't. Not a word. She acted like everything was fine, like she hadn't blown a hole through our relationship and kept walking, so I sat her down. No build-up, no theatrics. Just looked her in the eye and said, I saw the message from Drew, the one on your iPad. Her face went blank. Not scared, not ashamed, just blank. Then she rolled her eyes. I remember every word. It was a mistake, she said, voice cool and detached. It didn't mean anything. You're really going to blow up our wedding over one night? You need to man up. Man up. That phrase hit me like a punch to the chest, as if her betrayal was just something I was supposed to absorb and swallow quietly. Like I was weak for feeling shattered. Like I was the problem for not being okay with the woman I loved sleeping with someone else, and then coming home to plan our wedding like nothing happened. I asked her if she loved him. She laughed. It was sex, not Shakespeare. You're being dramatic. There it was. No apology. No remorse. Just condescension wrapped in sarcasm. She wasn't sorry. She was annoyed that I found out. In that moment, something inside me broke. Not my heart, it had already been cracking. No, this was deeper. Like a thread of belief snapped. The belief that she ever actually loved me the way I loved her. I got up, walked out of the room, and I didn't look back. After that night, I thought we'd reached the breaking point. That maybe she'd finally realize what she'd done and face the consequences. But instead of taking responsibility, Allie flipped the entire narrative. She went from guilty to victim in the span of a day. She started telling people I was emotionally distant, that I had become cold and unloving in the months leading up to the wedding. That I was impossible to talk to. That I had checked out. She painted me as unstable, unreliable, and worst of all, ungrateful. I only found out because her mom called me the next day in tears, asking why I was sabotaging the happiest time of Allie's life. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't even told my own parents what was going on. I was still trying to process it myself. Meanwhile, she had launched a full-on PR campaign to protect her image. I confronted her again. Told her she needed to stop twisting the truth. Her response? I just told them my side. You can tell yours too, her side. As if there were two versions of reality. As if her cheating, her lying, her manipulation were just interpretations open to debate. She weaponized every private conversation we'd ever had. Used my moments of vulnerability as proof that I was somehow the one to blame. I'd opened up to her about my insecurities, my fear of not being enough, and now she was using those exact words to justify her affair. I started to question myself. Maybe I was too distant. Maybe I hadn't made her feel wanted enough. Maybe if I'd just, no. That was the gaslighting working. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. She cheated, she lied. And now she was trying to rewrite the entire story, but I wasn't going to let her be the narrator anymore. The engagement ring I gave Allie was my grandmother's, a delicate vintage piece with a soft sapphire halo around a single diamond. I had it professionally restored and set into a custom band. It wasn't the biggest or flashiest ring, but it was meaningful, filled with history, love, and intention. Now, I couldn't look at it without feeling sick. She still wore it. Every day, parading it around like a trophy. She posted selfies of it on Instagram with captions like, 3 months to forever, and can't wait to marry my best friend. It was surreal, watching her play the loving bride online while knowing the truth behind closed doors. At night, I'd catch her scrolling through Pinterest boards of flower arrangements and color schemes, humming to herself while I sat across the room hollow. There was a time when her voice brought me peace. Now it made my skin crawl. I asked her once why she still wore the ring. She blinked. Because we're still getting married. Unless you're seriously going to throw everything away over one mistake. I couldn't even speak. That ring used to symbolize our future. Now it felt like a lie wrapped in gold. I started sleeping on the couch more often. Told her it was because of my back. She didn't question it. I think part of her believed I was calming down, learning to get over it. The truth was, every time I looked at her, I felt like a stranger in my own life. The ring never came off. Not once, she wore it like armor, like proof that she still owned my heart. But what she didn't know was that the person who gave her that ring no longer existed, and the man who replaced him was quietly preparing for war. Up until this point, I'd been stuck in a fog, numb, hurt, confused, angry. But then something inside me flipped. It was the night I found an old photo album in the closet while looking for one of her misplaced vendor contracts. As I flipped through pages of us laughing, traveling, celebrating, I didn't feel nostalgic. I felt rage because I realized I had all the evidence I needed. I just hadn't used it yet. The iPad message was just the tip. I dug deeper. I knew her password, she never changed it. Late at night, while she slept next to me, I went through her iCloud backups. What I found made my hands tremble. Messages with Drew, dozens, weeks worth. Inside jokes, flirty texts, nudes, even videos. She sent him updates about wedding planning like it was some kind of joke. Got the cake samples today. Hope you're hungry, babe. I felt like vomiting. I saved everything. Screenshotted, downloaded, backed it up to multiple drives. I even created a Dropbox folder labeled Truth and locked it with a password, but I didn't confront her. Not again. What would be the point? She already taught me how she responds to honesty, with gaslighting, deflection, manipulation. So I decided this time I wouldn't play by her rules. That's when my plan started forming. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg for an apology that was never coming. I would give her what she wanted: silence, stability, smiles. I'd let her think I was healing, forgiving, moving on, and then, when the time was right, I'd vanish, but not without leaving behind the truth. Because if she wanted to play games, I was finally ready to win. The shift was subtle at first. I stopped asking questions, stopped making side comments, stopped pulling away. I kissed her on the forehead when I left for work. I complimented her dress when she got ready for brunch. I even picked up her favorite coffee order like old times. She mistook my silence for surrender. I could tell by the way she started smiling again, the way she held my hand in public just a little tighter as if she'd won. She thought I had gotten over it, that I'd decided to be the bigger person. She once even said, "I'm really proud of you for working through it." I nodded, smiled, let her believe it, but behind the curtain, I was dismantling our life one piece at a time. I opened a new checking account in a bank she didn't use, transferred small amounts, just enough not to raise alarms. I started slowly removing my clothes from our shared closet, mixing in old winter storage items to make it seem like reorganizing. I moved documents, passwords, backups. I removed my name from joint reservations and started researching legal advice. I stopped being her partner and became her shadow. She began planning the final dress fitting. talked about table centerpieces and live musicians for the cocktail hour. She thought the future was back on track. She even posted an Instagram story with the caption, "He stayed." Real love wins. She had no idea I was only staying long enough to watch the whole illusion crumble, and as she floated on the lie she built, I started counting the days. Because she thought I was rebuilding, but I was already gone. Once I committed to my plan, I stopped participating in anything wedding-related, but not in a loud, obvious way. No protests, no dramatic refusals, I just started playing dumb. If she asked for my opinion on linen colors, I'd say, "Whatever you like." When she showed me pictures of table layouts, I nodded with vague enthusiasm. I didn't fight. I didn't care. That was the key. She didn't notice or didn't want to. She was so wrapped up in her own fantasy of redemption that my passivity only seemed to affirm it. "You're finally trusting me again," she said one night, curling into me like nothing had ever happened. I didn't respond, just held her while my mind raced ahead to the day it would all implode. She booked the florist, finalized the catering, locked in the band. I let her sign the contracts. I let her pay the deposits with her own money. Mine was long gone, tucked into a safe account she didn't know existed. Her family gushed every time we saw them. Her dad told me, "You're a good man for sticking by her. She told us everything." That almost made me laugh. Everything, huh? I started backing out of my own family's planning chats saying work was getting busy. My mom noticed, asked me once if I was doing okay. I lied. Told her I was just tired. What else could I say? "Your son's fiancée cheated on him, and now he's pretending to be in love so he can publicly destroy her at her own wedding." Yeah, no. I let Allie believe she was walking down the aisle toward redemption, that she had made a mistake and been forgiven, that the life she almost ruined had been handed back to her on a silver platter, and she had no idea I was about to pull the entire tablecloth out from underneath her. My best man, Marcus, organized a weekend cabin trip for my bachelor party. Just a few close friends, some beers, board games, and a quiet escape before the big day. I should have been excited. I should have felt celebrated. But instead, I felt like I was walking into my own funeral with a smile on my face. The first night, we sat around the fire drinking whiskey and telling old stories. I laughed, but it was hollow. Every word stuck in my throat. Eventually, Marcus pulled me aside. "You good, man? You've been off for months," I tried to brush it off. Told him I was just tired. But he didn't buy it, so I cracked. I told him everything. Every disgusting detail. The message, the lie. The way she spun it back on me. The silence. The fake forgiveness. The plan to disappear. I unloaded 5 years of love and betrayal onto the porch steps of that cabin, while he just sat there, eyes wide, fists clenched. When I finished, he didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "Jesus, man. That's not love. That's war." I broke down, full-on ugly crying. I hadn't cried since the night I found the message. I think I'd been holding my breath this whole time, waiting for someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't weak. That this wasn't my fault. That moment, raw and unfiltered, was rock bottom. Because it made everything real. This wasn't a nightmare. It was my life. And I was days away from marrying a woman who saw me as nothing more than a doormat in a suit. When we drove back Sunday evening, something in me had changed. The sadness wasn't gone, but it had hardened into something sharper. Resolve. The next phase of my plan wasn't just survival anymore. It was justice. The moment we got back from the cabin, I switched gears. No more emotional spirals. No more daydreaming about what-ifs. I went into surgical mode, cold, calculated, focused. I signed the lease on a small one-bedroom apartment about 30 minutes outside the city. Paid 3 months up front in cash. No forwarding address. No utilities under my real name. I told the landlord it was a surprise retreat spot for writing. He didn't ask questions. I moved essentials there slowly. My laptop, backup drives, important documents, clothes. One duffel bag at a time during gym runs or errands. Back at the condo, I cleared out my presents little by little. Emptied drawers. Took down childhood photos. Packed up the watch box she got me for my birthday. Every step felt like peeling off another piece of dead skin. I called vendors privately and canceled everything tied to me. My tux, our honeymoon booking, the efficient I had chosen. I told them not to inform Allie until after the wedding date. I used a legal loophole in the contracts we signed. The deposits were in her name. The fallout would land on her. She didn't notice a thing. She was too busy debating whether the reception should have fairy lights or hanging candles. One night she climbed into my lap, held my face in her hands, and whispered, "I'm so glad we made it through everything." I didn't even flinch. At work, I put in a request for remote flexibility. My boss, bless him, thought it was for the honeymoon. He gave me his blessing and a bottle of wine. I smiled, accepted it, and slid it into the back seat of my car next to my half-packed life. I was disappearing in plain sight. And she was too busy playing bride to notice. The countdown had begun. The morning of our wedding, the world was still. No alarms. No noise, no frantic calls. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels holy, like the air itself is holding its breath. I woke up in the apartment I'd secretly been living in for 2 weeks. Sunlight filtered through the dusty blinds as I sat up in bed and stared at my phone. It was already vibrating, 17 missed calls. 10 from Allie, 3 from her mom. A few from friends. Texts started pouring in. "Babe, where are you? They're seating people already. Call me. If you're playing some kind of joke, this isn't funny. Your parents are here. You're scaring me. Please." I didn't answer. I didn't even open them. I made coffee. Real slow, took a long shower, packed up the last of my things. Each motion was deliberate, cleansing, like I was scrubbing off 5 years of illusion. For once, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't second-guessing. I was calm. Steel. I had already removed myself from the wedding registry and our joint account the night before. Set up email auto-forwards to a backup address. Even wiped my name from the digital wedding album link. I'd left her a single envelope in our condo. Inside was a flash drive. On it, the screenshots. The texts, the pictures, everything. Labeled, dated, time-stamped. Next to it, the ring tucked into the velvet box it came in with a sticky note on top. "You told me to man up, so I did. That was it." No speech, no closure. Just reality. As the ceremony start time passed, my phone didn't stop buzzing, but I didn't turn it off. I left it on the table, ringing, and walked out the door without looking back. By the time the ceremony was supposed to start, the chaos had gone nuclear. My best man Marcus started texting me live updates from the venue. He said the guests were seated, the music was playing, and Allie was pacing behind the scenes in full makeup and gown, looking like a porcelain bomb about to crack. Her bridesmaids tried to keep her calm, telling her I was probably just stuck in traffic. Then 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Then the whispers started. Her dad was livid. Her mom kept trying to call me, pacing like she was in a courtroom drama. Some guests left. Others stayed, glued to the unfolding. Disaster like it was the most expensive soap opera they'd ever witnessed. And then the envelope was found. Apparently, one of the bridesmaids went back to our condo to grab a pair of forgotten shoes. Found the ring box and the flash drive sitting on the kitchen counter. She opened it. Started reading. Didn't even wait. The bridesmaid group chat exploded. The truth spread like wildfire through the venue. By the time Allie stepped out to explain the delay, half the room already knew. My screenshots were being passed around like holy scripture. Messages from Drew, her smug jokes about fooling me. Pictures of them together, clear as day. The ceremony was canceled on the spot. No explanation could fix it. No spin could sanitize it. Allie tried to save face, saying I was emotionally abusive and unstable. But the proof was already viral, at least in our social circles. My cousin even posted one of the texts to her story with the caption, "Guess who's not walking down the aisle today?" By nightfall, Allie locked all her accounts. Comments flooded in. People chose sides. But the majority didn't need convincing. She lit the match. All I did was let the fire spread. In the days that followed, my phone stayed flooded. Calls, texts, DMs, even emails from random friends of friends who had seen the screenshots. Some were apologizing. Some were cheering me on. A few just wanted the tea. But I didn't respond to anyone, not even Marcus, for the first 48 hours. I was somewhere deep in the woods, unplugged. No reception. No distractions. Just me, a bottle of bourbon, and the kind of silence that doesn't hurt anymore. When I finally came back online, I skimmed through everything. One message stuck with me. It was from Allie's mom. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You deserved better. I stared at that for a while. Didn't reply. My parents took it harder than I did. My mom was heartbroken. Not just because of the betrayal, but because she genuinely loved Allie like a daughter. My dad was furious. Quiet, cold, calculating fury. He sent me an email titled Asset Separation Strategy, and I realized in that moment where I'd inherited my ability to plot in silence, I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to carry her poison into the next chapter of my life. I needed to rebuild, not just my self-worth, but my sense of reality. Because when someone gaslights you long enough, even the truth starts to feel like a maybe. And yeah, there are days I still feel the sting. But then I wake up in a bed I chose, in a space that's finally mine, with no lies hiding behind the walls, no fake smiles. No second guessing. I didn't get an apology. I didn't get closure. But I got peace, and sometimes peace is louder than revenge. A couple of months passed. Life settled into a quiet rhythm. I wasn't checking her socials anymore. I wasn't obsessing over what people thought. The rage had passed. The sadness had thinned. I was breathing again, and then, out of nowhere, I got a message request on Instagram from Danielle, her cousin. The one Allie lied about on the spa weekend. I hesitated before opening it. But curiosity won. Just thought you should know Allie's telling people you cheated. She's playing the abandoned victim card to save face. She's even crying about emotional abuse now. I just stared at the screen. Danielle went on to say she was sick of being dragged into the drama. She had screenshots of Allie's group chat messages where she was actively fabricating a new version of the story. One, where I was the monster and she was the heartbroken bride. I felt this slow heat rising in my chest. Not because I was surprised, honestly I wasn't, but because even now, after everything, she still couldn't take responsibility. She was rewriting history in real time, so I gave Danielle access to the Dropbox, all of it. She posted a compilation on her Instagram story with one sentence. If you're going to lie, at least don't leave receipts. The screenshots spread like wildfire again. Allie tried to play it off, but her inner circle started turning on her. Comments disappeared. Stories got deleted. Then came the final cherry on top. A week later, I got tagged in a meme. It was a picture of a wedding cake in the trash with the caption, "He didn't say I do, he said I'm done." I didn't like it. Didn't comment. Just smirked. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't a loud confrontation. It's silence. It's healing. It's letting the truth speak while you move on with your life. And trust me, I've never felt lighter.